Lord, give me strength. It was Tuesday, Earl Grey steeping just the way I like it, strong enough to stand a spoon in, when the phone rang. My caller ID flashed, Sarah, daughter-in-law. Now, sweetie, Sarah's a perfectly nice girl, as nice as a freshly starched tablecloth, but sometimes she forgets I wasn't born yesterday. Helen, dear, that sickly sweet voice, like saccharin and iced tea, always sets my teeth on edge. Just calling to see how you're doing. I took a slow sip of my tea. I'm fine, Sarah. Arthritis is acting up a bit with the weather change, but otherwise peachy. Oh, good. Listen, Helen, I wanted to talk about little Timmy. Timmy, my grandson, bless his heart, is a rambunctious 5-year-old with a penchant for drawing on the walls and an endless supply of questions. I adore him. What about Timmy, honey? I asked, trying to keep the steel out of my voice. Well, Sarah drawled, I've noticed some of the things you say to him about, spare the rod, spoil the child, and children should be seen and not heard, things like that. Here we go. Sarah, I'm just offering a little guidance. Back in my day, a little discipline never hurt anyone. I could practically hear her rolling her eyes through the phone. Mom, Helen, times have changed. We're trying to raise Timmy with positive reinforcement. All that negativity, it's kind of toxic. Toxic. That's a new one. My parenting advice, toxic? I raised my son Michael just fine, thank you very much. He turned out to be a decent, hardworking man. Well, until... never you mind. Toxic, huh? I said, carefully placing my teacup back on the saucer. I'll try to keep that in mind, sweetie. It's just that, we want what's best for Timmy, and sometimes I think maybe you're a little stuck in your ways. Stuck in my ways? At 72, after a lifetime of hard work and raising a family, I'm entitled to be a little stuck in my ways, especially since I poured a significant chunk of my retirement savings into helping them buy that ridiculous McMansion in the suburbs. A McMansion with a yard bigger than my first apartment? I understand, Sarah. I'll try to be more mindful. I lied through my teeth. There was a pause, a pregnant silence that I knew meant there was more coming. I braced myself. So, she continued, her voice taking on that sugary tone again, how are you managing everything, Helen? With the house and your finances? It's just that, Michael and I were talking, and we're a little concerned. You're on a fixed income, right? And things can get tricky at your age. My age? Damn her. I'm managing just fine, Sarah. I've been managing my own finances before you were born. I was a goddamn accountant for 30 years, for Christ's sakes. But tea was forgotten. My blood was starting to boil. I know how to balance a checkbook and make a budget. Social Security comes in like clockwork, and I even have a little nest egg tucked away. Oh, I know. It's just, maybe you could use some help, just to make sure everything is secure. Secure? What was she implying? Did she think I was losing my marbles and blowing my money on lottery tickets and snake oil salesmen? Help! What kind of help are you talking about, Sarah? Before she could answer, I heard a beep from my new security system. That damn tech kid, what was his name? Kevin? Trevor?
some millennial with more hair gel than sense. He installed this fancy system a few weeks ago, convinced I needed enterprise-grade cloud backup and 24/7 monitoring. Bullshit, I said. I just wanted a simple alarm. But Michael insisted, said it would give him peace of mind. Now, every time I accidentally trip the alarm trying to get the mail, I get a call from some kid in Bangalore asking me if I'm being held hostage. And don't even get me started on trying to access the security footage. The app looks like hieroglyphics to me. Sorry, Sarah. One moment. That's probably that damn security system again. Everything is backed up to some cloud or another. I can barely check my email, much less figure out how to view the security camera. I muted the phone. Yes, what is it now? I snapped, even though it was just the automated system reminding me the front door sensor was offline. That tech kid swore it was user-friendly. User-friendly for who? Someone who speaks fluent binary code? I unmuted the phone. Sorry, Sarah. False alarm. Now, what were you saying about help? What kind of help does Sarah have in mind?
What kind of help does Sarah have in mind? I repeated, swirling the lukewarm Earl Grey in my china teacup. Honestly, honey, you could cut the tension with a butter knife. A week passed, nothing but radio silence. I tried calling Sarah a couple times, even left a message for David, but got nada, zip. Figured maybe she realized how ridiculous she sounded. Maybe she finally clued in that accusing your own mother-in-law of being senile after she practically signed over her life savings was a tad insensitive. Then the goddamn courier showed up. Now, I'm no stranger to deliveries. Between Amazon and QVC, I keep UPS in business. But this wasn't a padded envelope filled with wrinkle cream or a set of ceramic squirrels. This was a thick manila envelope, the kind that screams legal trouble louder than a car alarm at 3 a.m. The courier, a skinny kid with a pierced nose and a disinterested expression, just shoved it at me and mumbled something about needing a signature. No, good morning, ma'am. No, have a nice day. Just a grunt and a flick of the wrist. Back in my day, you were taught to respect your elders. These kids today, I swear. I took the envelope, my hands suddenly cold despite the Atlanta heat, and signed on his little electronic doodad. He was gone before I could even offer him a glass of sweet tea. I stood there, staring at the envelope, the floral wallpaper in my entryway suddenly feeling oppressive. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I knew, just knew this wasn't good. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I'd faced down worse in my life, a cheating husband, a recession that wiped out half my 401k, and the endless parade of pop-up ads promising to enlarge certain body parts. This was just paper. Except it wasn't just paper, was it? I carried the envelope into the kitchen, the linoleum cool beneath my bare feet. The sun streamed in through the window above the sink, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I could smell the faint lingering scent of pot roast from the night before. A comforting smell, usually. Not today. With trembling hands, I tore open the envelope. Inside was a stack of documents, neatly bound with a plastic comb. The first page was titled Petition for Conservatorship. Conservatorship. The word slammed into me like a punch to the gut. I sank into a kitchen chair, the breath knocked out of me. I scanned the document, my eyes blurring with disbelief and rage. Sarah and David were petitioning the court to declare me legally incompetent. They claimed I was suffering from cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. And sweet Jesus, they were using the $400,000 I'd given them for their damn house as proof of my instability. That money, that was supposed to be their future, a nest egg for their kids. I even sold my prize-winning stamp collection, the one my father left me, to make sure they had enough for a down payment. And now they were using it against me?
The petition went on to detail all my supposed failings, my increasing forgetfulness. I forget where I put my reading glasses sometimes, big deal. My irrational spending habits. A new security system after a string of burglaries in the neighborhood hardly seems rational. My inability to manage my own affairs. The sheer audacity, the gall. They were trying to strip me of my independence, my dignity, my very self. I read on, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the pages. They were asking the court to appoint David as my conservator, giving him complete control over my finances, my health care, my entire life. They wanted to lock me away, like some unwanted piece of furniture. Suddenly, the delicate porcelain teacup in my hand felt flimsy, inadequate. I set it down with a sharp clink. No more tea party. No more Miss Nice Lady. I stood up, my arthritis screaming in my knees, and walked over to the cupboard. I pulled out my favorite mug, the one that says World's Best Accountant in bold blue letters. It was heavy, ceramic, indestructible. I filled it with water and shoved it in the microwave. While I waited, I stared out the window watching the squirrels chase each other through the oak tree in my backyard, the same tree that my David used to climb as a little boy, the same tree he carved his initials into along with a heart around my own. How could he do this to me? How could they? The microwave beeped. I took out the mug, dropped in a tea bag. This time it was strong, black English breakfast, and let it steep. As I stirred, I felt a cold, hard resolve settle over me. This wasn't just an insult. This wasn't just a family squabble. This was a declaration of war. Honey, I've spent my entire adult life balancing books, finding loopholes, and outsmarting tax auditors. I know how to fight dirty, and I'm not about to let my own son and daughter-in-law steal my life out from under me. They think I'm old and addled. They think I'm an easy target. They're about to find out just how wrong they are. They may have technology on their side. They may have fancy lawyers in courtrooms. But I have something they don't. I have their secrets. Specifically, I have Sarah's childhood journals. Remember the house move? Whilst they were busy ordering organic quinoa and a new Tesla, I rescued a few boxes headed for the trash. How does a retired accountant fight a tech-savvy predator? With a paper trail, sweetie. A very, very embarrassing paper trail.
Lord, give me strength, I muttered, gripping the steering wheel of my Buick. Wells Fargo. It loomed before me, a monument to my financial stability, or what used to be my financial stability. Now it felt more like a fortress protecting the very people who were trying to undermine me. I smoothed down my floral skirt, took a deep breath, and marched inside. I knew exactly what I needed. 5 years of statements, both checking and credit card. Every single transaction. It was a paper mountain, I knew, but I needed to climb it. The young buck at the information desk gave me a condescending smile. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Ma'am. That word always felt like a subtle dig these days. Yes, I need to speak with someone about obtaining copies of my bank statements. He directed me to a desk where a man in a crisp blue suit sat, name tag reading, Brad, Financial Advisor. Financial advisor, please. He probably wasn't even old enough to remember when banks gave away toasters. "Mrs. Parker," Brad said, his smile as polished as his shoes. "What can I do for you today?" "I need copies of my bank statements and credit card statements for the last 5 years. Brad's smile faltered just for a fraction of a second. 5 years? That's a lot of statements. Is there a specific reason you need them?" "That's really none of your concern, is it, Brad?" I said, my voice a little sharper than I intended. My arthritis was acting up, and I hated feeling like I had to justify myself to some whippersnapper barely old enough to shave. "I'm a long-time customer. I believe I'm entitled to my own records." He backpedaled quickly. "Of course, Mrs. Parker, of course. It's just, most people access those online these days. Much easier. Do you have online access set up? I do, but I prefer to have hard copies. I'm old-fashioned, I guess. And because, honey, I suspected my darling son had fiddled with my online account. He tapped away at his keyboard. There will be a fee for printing that many statements, you know. How much? I asked, already bracing myself. These banks nickel and dime you to death. It depends on the number of pages, probably around $50. $50? Highway robbery! Fine, I said through gritted teeth. Just get them for me. He disappeared into a back office and returned 15 minutes later with a stack of boxes. Boxes, I tell you, each one overflowing with paper. Here you go, Mrs. Parker. Let me know if you need anything else. He practically shoved them at me. I managed to wrestle the boxes into the back of my Buick. As I drove home, I felt a surge of determination. This was it. This was where I found the proof I needed. Back in my sunroom, surrounded by stacks of financial history, I started the tedious work. Statement after statement, I meticulously reviewed every transaction. Mortgage payments, utilities, groceries, my little indulgences at the florist. Everything seemed normal, expected. Painfully, boringly, normal. Hours passed. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room. My eyes started to blur, and my back ached. I was about to call it a night when I saw it. On my credit card statement, buried amongst the usual charges from Publix and Macy's, were several small, unfamiliar online purchases. $10 here, $15 there, things I didn't recognize. One was listed as Stream Time subscription. Another was Gamer Fuel supplement. And a third simply Zap It Pro. Zap It Pro? What in the world was that? I frowned. I didn't remember ordering any of those things. Stream Time? I barely know how to turn on Netflix. Gamer Fuel? Sweetie, the only fuel I needed was a cup of Earl Grey. And Zap It Pro? Sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. I squinted, rubbing my tired eyes. Maybe I had ordered them and simply forgotten. It wouldn't be the first time lately I'd misplaced my keys or forgotten an appointment. Getting older was a bitch. But then again, why would I buy something called Zap It Pro? And why were these charges so small, so insignificant? Almost like someone was trying to hide them. A chill ran down my spine. Was my mind playing tricks on me, or was I being played?
Well, ain't that a kick in the teeth? I muttered, staring out from my porch swing. The humid Atlanta air hung heavy, smelling of honeysuckle and freshly cut grass. Peaceful, right? Like a damn Norman Rockwell painting. Except, instead of a wholesome family picnic, I was watching a black Mercedes GLE 350 pull into Sarah and David's driveway. A Mercedes! Sweet Jesus. David hopped out, all smiles, wearing that new golf shirt I'm pretty sure cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Sarah followed, juggling a yoga mat and a Whole Foods bag overflown with organic kale. Kale, for crying out loud. Back in my day, kale was something you garnished a sad buffet platter with, not a dietary staple. They were living high on the hog, and I was the damn pig. The sight of that car, that Mercedes, was the final straw. It wasn't just the money anymore, honey. It was the blatant disrespect. The way Sarah dismissed my advice like I was some senile old bat. Toxic parenting, she'd called it. Toxic. I practically raised her myself, while her mother was gallivanting around Europe with that snake oil salesman Harold. I took a long sip of my iced tea, the sweetness doing little to quell the bitterness rising in my throat. It was time to fight fire with fire. I wasn't gonna sit here on my fixed income, crocheting Afghans and waiting for the Grim Reaper while my daughter and her fancy husband drove around in a damn Mercedes I indirectly paid for. I went inside, the screen door slamming shut with a satisfying thwack. My arthritis was acting up, a dull ache throbbing in my knuckles, but I ignored it. I marched to my study, the room I'd painstakingly organized over the years, every file meticulously labeled, every receipt neatly tucked away. Years of being a damn good accountant, and now that skill was going to be used to protect myself. I sat down at my desk, the familiar scent of old paper and lemon polish filling my nostrils. I grabbed my iPhone, the one Sarah insisted I get so we could FaceTime, though half the time I just ended up accidentally muting myself. I scrolled through my contacts, my finger hovering over a name I hadn't called in years, Anya Sharma. Anya was a sharp young lawyer I'd met at a local business luncheon a while back. She specialized in elder fraud, a field that was, sadly, booming these days. She was young, ambitious, and hungry, a far cry from the stuffy old money lawyers who populated Atlanta's legal scene. She also had a reputation for being a digital whiz, something I desperately needed. I hesitated for a moment. Calling Anya felt drastic, like admitting I'd been a fool. But pride had no place in this. This was about protecting what was rightfully mine. I took a long breath and pressed the call button. It rang twice before a crisp, professional voice answered. Anya Sharma, how can I help you? Anya, this is Helen Parker. We met at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon a couple years ago. Mrs. Parker, of course I remember you. How are you doing? Fair to middlin', honey, though I suspect that might change after I tell you why I'm calling. I paused, gathering my thoughts. I need your help, Anya. I think my daughter and her husband might be taking advantage of me. I laid it all out for her. The house, the retirement savings, the unsettling credit card charges, the dismissive attitude. I told her about stream time, gamer fuel, and that damn Zap It Pro. I even told her about the hours I'd spend poring over my Quicken files, trying to find some logical explanation for it all. Anya listened patiently, occasionally interjecting with a clarifying question. Her voice was calm and reassuring, but I could sense the wheels turning in her sharp mind. She said finally, Mrs. Parker, this sounds concerning, especially those online charges. Do you have any idea what those products might be? Not a clue, sweetie. I'm lucky if I can remember my own phone number these days, let alone figure out what Zap It Pro is supposed to do. Probably some newfangled gadget that'll be obsolete in 6 months anyway. I see. Well, I think we should start by looking into those charges. Can you provide me with copies of those credit card statements? Absolutely. I've got everything meticulously documented, just like I always have. You know, being a retired accountant has its perks. I paused. But Anya, there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone. I hesitated, suddenly feeling a wave of vulnerability wash over me. This was the part that felt the most shameful. The part that exposed my naivete, my blind love for my daughter. Back when Sarah was a teenager, she kept journals, lots of them, filled with all sorts of teenage angst and drama. After she went off to college, she left them behind. They're still up in the attic. I never threw them away. There was a beat of silence on the other end of the line. Mrs. Parker, are you suggesting that these journals might contain information relevant to your current situation? I don't know, honey. Maybe. Maybe not. But they're a window into Sarah's past, into her motivations. And I have a feeling they might be the key to unlocking this whole mess. I took another sip of my tea, the ice clinking softly against the glass. I just don't know if a new school lawyer like you can understand an old school fight."
"Well, butter my backside and call me a biscuit," I muttered into the phone, ending my call with Anya. The click of the receiver, yes, I still have a landline, sue me, barely registered before I heard the familiar jingle of the doorbell. Sarah, right on cue. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my floral print dress, Lord, I need to get out more, and pasted on my best confused old lady smile. Anya swore this act would disarm Sarah, make her underestimate me. I felt like a damn fool. "Oh, Sarah, sweetie, come in," I chirped, opening the door wide. The smell of her expensive perfume, some flowery concoction that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, wafted in as she breezed past me, all smiles and carefully constructed concern. "Mama, how are you feeling? I was just thinking about you this morning," she said, her voice dripping with a syrup so thick you could ice a cake with it. "Oh, you know, just peachy. Arthritis is acting up something fierce, and I swear these newfangled gadgets are gonna be the death of me. Come on in, let's have some tea." I led her into the living room, carefully shuffling my feet as if my hip was about to give out any second. On the coffee table, I'd strategically placed my tablet, the Wells Fargo app, glaring accusingly from the screen. It was all part of Anya's plan, a carefully constructed mousetrap baited with my own vulnerability. "Oh, sweetie, you shouldn't have," I said, feigning surprise as Sarah's eyes landed on the tablet. Sarah, ever the picture of practiced empathy, frowned. "Mama, are you sure you're managing all right? I see you've been doing some online shopping again." She picked up the tablet, her manicured nails tapping against the screen. "Oh dear, another one of those Zap It Pro doohickeys. You know you ordered 3 of those last week, and they're non-refundable, Mama." "Did I, honey? Mercy, I completely forgot. You know, my memory isn't what it used to be." I batted my eyelashes for good measure. Inside, I was seething. 3 Zap It Pro thingamajigs? She knew damn well I hadn't ordered any of that nonsense. It was all part of her scheme to paint me as incompetent, to justify taking control of my finances. The gall of this woman. "And these lambs, Mama, 3 identical Tiffany-style lambs from Lamb Saras. Don't you remember, dear? We talked about this. You said you wanted to give one to Mrs. Henderson down the street, but you couldn't remember her name when the delivery man came, so you kept them all. And they were on Easy Pay, too. Goodness, Mama, these all look like scam sites, Mama. I'm so worried." I bit back the urge to scream, to tell her exactly where she could stick her concern and her Tiffany-style lamps. Instead, I poured her a cup of tea, my hands trembling just enough to sell the act. "Oh, Sarah, you're such a dear to worry about your old mother. I just don't know what I'd do without you," I said, my voice dripping with saccharine sweetness. As I handed her the tea, I watched her carefully. Her eyes darted around the room, assessing, calculating. She was enjoying this, relishing in her perceived control. The smug little viper. "Mama, maybe it's time we talked about getting you some help. Someone to manage your finances. Make sure you're not being taken advantage of," she said, her voice soft and soothing. "Help? Oh, Sarah, I don't need help. I'm perfectly capable," I protested, my voice rising slightly, but still carefully modulated to sound confused rather than angry. "Mama, sweetie, be reasonable. You're forgetting things. You're buying things you don't need. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
It happens to everyone as they get older. You know, the insurance agent called again about that life insurance policy and wanted you to sign something. I told him I'd call back, but you haven't even had that policy in 20 years. You were probably thinking about your AARP auto policy. But, I trailed off, pretending to struggle for the right words. Maybe you're right, honey. Maybe I am getting a little forgetful. I gave her a weak smile. I just want what's best for you, Mama. Of course, dear, of course. I watched her sip her tea, her eyes gleaming with triumph. She thought she had me right where she wanted me. She thought she was winning. But what she didn't know was that I was just getting started. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now all I had to do was wait for it to spring shut. Anya said I needed to keep this charade up for another week. I don't know if I can do it. I'm an awful actress. How long could I maintain the facade of a confused old woman before my own anger, my own righteous fury finally bubbled to the surface?
Lord, give me strength. This forgetful old lady act was harder than balancing the books at a textile mill during the Carter administration. I could feel my blood pressure rising with every patronizing pat on the hand. Once she left, I bolted the door, drew the blinds, and marched straight to my study. The house was quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the gentle tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. That damn clock! David bought it at an estate sale, swore it was an antique. More likely it was something from a Sears catalog. I swear it's gotten louder since he passed, mocking me with its relentless march of time. Time that Sarah clearly thought I was running out of. I settled into my desk chair, the leather creaking beneath me like an old bone protesting. The familiar scent of aged paper and dust filled my nostrils. My sanctuary, a place where numbers spoke louder than words and logic reigned supreme. I flipped on the desk lamp, its harsh light illuminating the clutter, stacks of bills neatly organized, a half-finished crossword puzzle, and a framed photo of David grinning like a fool at our 25th anniversary. All right, David, I muttered to the picture. Let's show her what your old lady is capable of. My fingers danced across the keyboard, summoning my ancient accounting software. It was a relic from the 90s, DOS-based, but it still worked, damn it. Better than any of that cloud-based garbage they have now. Try hacking this, you young whippersnappers. I navigated the menus, my fingers remembering the commands as if they were ingrained in my DNA. I needed to trace that initial transfer, $400,000. A king's ransom, practically all of my retirement savings. I'd been so proud to help them get a foothold in that overpriced market. I started with the outflow ledger, scrolling through the entries, past the mundane, Social Security payments, utility bills, the monthly donation to the Alzheimer's Association, the irony. I found it, July 14th, 2018. Wire transfer to David Miller for property investment. My heart hammered in my chest. The details were all there. The routing number, the account number, even the transaction ID. But I needed more. I needed proof that it wasn't a gift, but a loan. Now, this is where my meticulous nature, bordering on obsessive, came into play. Back in my day, we didn't just transfer sums of money like that without documenting them. I remembered a conversation with David about the best way to ensure we weren't gifting such a huge sum. We had looked into various options, trusts, loans, gifts that are documented. I had been hesitant to go the gift route. We both agreed it should be treated as a loan. I remembered Anya, my lawyer, suggesting a platform where we could create a legally binding agreement and have it signed digitally, something secure with timestamps and verifiable signatures. It was a newfangled thing back then, but Anya assured me it would stand up in court. She's always been a smart cookie. I trust her more than I trust my own children sometimes.
I minimized the accounting software and opened my email client. Another dinosaur, but functional. I typed promissory note, Miller residence into the search bar and hit enter. The results trickled in, a mix of junk mail and old newsletters. And then there it was, buried beneath years of digital detritus. Promissory note, Miller residence, July 12th, 2018. My breath hitched. I clicked on the email. The familiar logo of DocuSign filled the screen. I scrolled down, my eyes scanning the document. There it was, the promissory note outlining the terms of the loan, the interest rate, minimal, but there, the repayment schedule, flexible, but defined. And there at the bottom are digital signatures, verified and time-stamped. A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. I had it. Proof. Undeniable, irrefutable proof. I maximized the accounting software again and carefully input the document reference number into the corresponding transaction entry. I had linked the money outflow to the legally binding loan document. I leaned back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. The weight on my chest lifted, replaced by a burgeoning sense of vindication. This was more than just about the money, honey. It was about respect, about being seen, being heard, being valued, about not being dismissed as a senile old woman whose mind was slipping away. Sarah thought she had outsmarted me. She thought she could manipulate me into signing away my rights, my independence. She thought she could control me. But she underestimated her mother. She forgot that I was a Parker, and Parkers don't go down without a fight. We're stubborn as mules, and we keep meticulous records. I looked at the DocuSign document, back at the accounting software. A smoking gun. Is it enough to win?
Well, bless their hearts, I drawled, smoothing the wrinkles from my floral print dress. This pre-trial mediation felt less like a path to resolution and more like a poorly acted play. The beige walls of the conference room seemed to amplify the sterile smell of the hand sanitizer that David had slathered on just moments ago. Honestly, you'd think he'd never seen a germ before. Sarah sat beside him, her face a mask of what I could only describe as pity? Pity for her own mother, as if I was some doddering fool who couldn't remember where she parked her Buick. Honestly, the gall. Their lawyer, a young buck with a haircut that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, was currently droning on about my erratic behavior. Erratic? I'll give him erratic. Back in my day, erratic meant driving a little too fast on a Sunday afternoon. Now it means, well, whatever he thinks it means. Mrs. Parker, he said, his voice oozing with that condescending sweetness that only lawyers and used car salesmen seem to possess. We have compiled a dossier of evidence indicating a pattern of unusual activity. He gestured to a thick stack of papers on the table. I could practically smell the tonering from across the room. My eyesight isn't what it used to be, thanks to this blasted arthritis creeping into every corner of my body. But I could tell those pages were filled with, well, with something designed to make me look like I'd lost my marbles. This includes, but is not limited to, he flipped open the file, a series of inexplicable online purchases. Bulk orders of glow-in-the-dark rubber chickens, for example? I raised an eyebrow. Glow-in-the-dark rubber chickens? Now that was a new one. The last thing I bought online was a new set of knitting needles. Maybe someone stole my credit card again. Happens all the time these days with these phishing scams and whatnot. Lord knows, I keep getting emails from Prince Kofi needing my help to transfer millions of dollars out of Nigeria. I may be old, sweetie, but I wasn't born yesterday. And numerous, somewhat bizarre social media posts. Posts that, frankly, appear to be out of character. He held up a printout of a Facebook post. I squinted. It showed a picture of a cat wearing a tiny sombrero, captioned, The revolution will be performed. Viva la Mexico. I don't recall posting that, I said calmly, sipping my lukewarm water. I had requested Earl Grey, but they only had bottled water. The indignity. Sarah sighed dramatically, her eyes welling up with tears. Mom, please, just admit you need help. Help with what, darling? I asked, my voice as smooth as silk. Help deciphering the complexities of feline political theory. I assure you, my mind is perfectly sharp. David shifted uncomfortably in a seat. He always hated confrontation, bless his heart. He was probably wishing he was back home watching the Golf Channel and nursing a Bud Light. The lawyer continued to present his evidence, a litany of supposed gaffes and missteps, each one more ridiculous than the last. He mentioned a 5-star review I supposedly left for a taxidermist specializing in squirrels wearing tiny hats. Again, not me. He even brought up a series of strongly worded tweets I allegedly sent to the CEO of Wells Fargo complaining about their automated phone system. I get frustrated with those damn automated systems, but to tweet about it, I'm not that tech savvy. All the while, Sarah continued to look at me with that same infuriatingly condescending expression, as if I was some fragile antique teacup about to shatter into a million pieces. Mrs. Parker, the lawyer said, finally wrapping up his presentation, in light of these irregularities, we believe it is reasonable to question your capacity to manage your own finances, and by extension, to accurately recall the terms of any prior financial agreements. He leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He thought he had me cornered. He thought he'd painted me as a senile old woman who couldn't tell her elbow from a hole in the ground. But he was wrong. I smiled, a slow, deliberate smile that reached all the way to my eyes. Is that all, dear? I asked, my voice deceptively sweet. I reached into my oversized purse, the one I bought at a church bazaar back in '87, and pulled out a thin, leather-bound journal. It was faded and worn, its pages filled with the loopy handwriting of a much younger Sarah. These, I said, holding up the journal, are Sarah's childhood diaries from the ages of 8 to 13. Quite illuminating reading, wouldn't you say? Sarah's face drained of all color, David choked on his water, and the young lawyer's smug grin vanished as quickly as a politician's promise. When will I reveal my hand?
Damn right I had something to add to the record. They thought they were dealing with some sweet old lady, bless their hearts. They were about to find out I wasn't just good at balancing a checkbook, I could balance the scales of justice too, or at least try my darndest. Just then, Anya, bless her sharp little mind, stood up. That girl was worth every penny I was paying her, even if it was coming out of my, rapidly dwindling retirement nest egg. She had a look on her face that said, "Hold my tea, Helen, I got this." "Your Honor," Anya said, her voice clear and strong, cutting through the tense silence in the room, "we have further evidence to present. Evidence that directly contradicts the claims made by the plaintiffs." She turned to Sarah and David, her expression devoid of any sympathy. "Specifically, evidence that demonstrates the $400,000 transferred to you was not a gift, but a loan, as per a legally binding agreement." David shifted uncomfortably, but Sarah just glared at Anya, her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. Anya nodded to her paralegal, who stepped forward and handed a tablet to the judge. "This," Anya continued, "is a digitally signed promissory note outlining the terms of the loan, including the repayment schedule and interest rate. The document is secured with cryptographic verification, making it virtually impossible to tamper with. The timestamp and authentication records are also included for your review." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "Furthermore," Anya added, her voice rising slightly, "we have traced the transfer of funds from Mrs. Parker's account, specifically from a managed account she's had with Wells Fargo since 1998, directly to Mr. and Mrs. Miller's joint account.
The transaction is clearly marked as loan for house purchase. Anya then turned her steely gaze back to Sarah and David. The agreed-upon repayment schedule commenced 2 years ago. To date, no payments have been made. Therefore, Your Honor, we contend that Mr. and Mrs. Miller are in default of their loan agreement. She sat down with a satisfied little oomph. I swear you could have heard a pin drop. Even the damn court reporter seemed to be holding her breath, fingers frozen over her little keyboard. The lawyer, what's his name, the young buck, was practically sputtering, trying to formulate a response. I looked at David, really looked at him, the boy I used to bounce on my knee, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the boy I helped with his algebra homework. He wouldn't meet my eye. He just stared at the floor, shame radiating off him in waves. David, I said softly, my voice laced with a sadness that surprised even me. I taught you to honor your commitments, sweetie. I taught you that your word was your bond. What happened? My voice cracked a little and I cleared my throat. This was harder than I thought. Seeing the disappointment in David's face, the knowledge that he had willingly chosen to deceive me, it hurt more than my arthritis on a rainy day. Sarah, of course, was a different story. She finally snapped. "This is ridiculous," she exclaimed, jumping to her feet. That so-called promissory note is a fabrication. We never agreed to any such thing. Mom, Mrs. Parker offered us that money as a gift, plain and simple. She was so happy to help us buy our dream home. She turned to the judge, her eyes wide and pleading, "Your Honor, my mother, Mrs. Parker, she's not in her right mind. She's been forgetful lately, easily confused. She probably doesn't even remember signing this thing." She gestured dismissively at the tablet the judge was reviewing. Anya rose again, calm as could be. "With all due respect, Your Honor, Mrs. Miller's assertions are demonstrably false. The cryptographic signature on the promissory note is irrefutable. It is tied to a digital key registered to Mrs. Parker. Furthermore, her financial transactions are carefully documented and consistent with her established patterns." She glanced at the lawyer, a hint of steel in her eyes. "We can also introduce bank statements proving Mrs. Parker has been receiving regular statements and actively managing her accounts online for years. The notion that she is incapable of understanding her own finances is simply absurd." I allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Checkmate, sweetie. Or so I thought. How could Sarah possibly counter irrefutable digital proof?
Damn! I thought I had him. I really did. You know, sometimes I get so caught up in the details, the logical progression of things, just like back in my accounting days, that I forget people can be sneaky, especially when money's involved. I saw David flinch when Anya laid out the digital signature stuff. He knows he signed that darn thing. He knows he promised to pay me back. He's just hoping, praying that his little wife can wriggle them out of it. But Sarah just gave her lawyer a little nod, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement, but I saw it. And then the snake oil salesman, her lawyer, he actually smiled. A slow, creeping, entirely too confident smile. It made my stomach churn like I'd eaten a bad batch of shrimp cocktail. "We anticipated this, Your Honor," he said, his voice smooth as butter left out in the sun. He opened his own laptop, a sleek silver thing that probably cost more than my first car. The air in the courtroom, which had been thick with my impending victory, suddenly shifted. You could practically feel the confidence oozing out of their side of the room like a burst pipe of pure, unadulterated arrogance. He tapped a few keys, his fingers dancing across the keyboard, like a concert pianist. Back in my day, we used adding machines. You young folks wouldn't even know what to do with one. A projector screen, which had been blank until now, flickered to life. "We appreciate Mrs. Parker's, thoroughness in documenting her financial transactions," the lawyer continued.
glancing at me with a condescending little smirk. "But we believe the court will find the evidence we are about to present far more compelling." He clicked the mouse, and a document appeared on the screen. It was familiar. Too familiar. My blood ran cold. It was a scan of a page from a spiral-bound notebook, the kind kids use in elementary school. "Your Honor," the lawyer said, his voice dripping with insincerity, "what you are seeing is a page from Sarah Miller's childhood journal, specifically a journal entry dated June 14th, 1998. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt like I was going to faint. June 14th, 1998? Sarah would have been 10 years old. What in the world? The lawyer zoomed in on the text. Scrawled in messy, childish handwriting were the words, "Mommy says Grandma Parker is mean, and she only cares about money. Mommy says Grandma Parker is always trying to tell me what to do, and she doesn't respect my choices. Mommy says Grandma Parker is a toxic person." The words hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Toxic. That's what she thinks of me? After everything I've done? The lawyer clicked again, and another page appeared. This one was dated August 2nd, 1999. "Mommy says Grandma Parker is always criticizing my clothes and my hair. Mommy says Grandma Parker doesn't understand me. Mommy says Grandma Parker is trying to control my life." And another, and another. Each entry a carefully curated indictment of my character, written in the innocent hand of a child, but clearly dictated by her, by my own daughter. I could feel the color draining from my face. My hands started to tremble. This was a low blow, even for them. The lawyer turned to the judge, his expression smug. "Your Honor, we believe these journal entries demonstrate a clear pattern of behavior on the part of Mrs. Parker, a pattern of control, manipulation, and emotional, well, let's just say a pattern of behavior that would naturally leave a loving daughter to feel obligated to accept a large sum of money from her mother, regardless of whether or not she truly wanted it." He paused for effect. "In other words, Your Honor, we are arguing that Mrs. Parker used undue influence over her daughter, and that the promissory note is therefore invalid." Undue influence? Me? I'd given them everything. My time, my money, my love. And this is how they repay me? By digging up my granddaughter's childhood scribbles and twisting them into some kind of character assassination? I glanced at Sarah. She wouldn't meet my eye. She just stared straight ahead, her face a mask of, what? Shame? Defiance? I couldn't tell. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about something much deeper, something much more painful. This was about my relationship with my daughter. This was about the legacy I was leaving behind. This was about the way she truly saw me. I thought about all the times I had offered advice, suggestions, even criticism. Had I really been that overbearing? That controlling? Had I really been that toxic? The courtroom seemed to tilt around me. I gripped the armrest of my chair, trying to steady myself. My head was swimming. I could hear Anya whispering urgently to me, but her words were muffled, distant. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have expert testimony ready to present from a child psychologist who will testify that these journal entries are consistent with the experiences of children who have been subjected to, what they called it now, something like, parental alienation." Parental alienation? What in the... Are they seriously trying to paint me like some kind of monster? I looked at the judge. He was listening intently, his brow furrowed. He was buying it. He was actually buying their garbage. A wave of fury surged through me, hot and fierce. This wasn't fair. This wasn't right. I wouldn't let them get away with this. I wouldn't let them rewrite history. I wouldn't let them... But how? How could I possibly fight this? They had taken my kindness, my generosity, my love, and twisted it into a weapon against me? They had used my own granddaughter's childhood words to destroy me, and they had done it all with such calculated precision. Anya was now patting my hand, her face etched with concern. "Mrs. Parker, are you all right?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, dear, just a little surprised." Inside, I was reeling. They had anticipated my digital proof. They had countered my airtight case with feelings, with emotions, with the carefully manipulated memories of a child. But still, something wasn't adding up. The dates, the entries. I remember Sarah's diary, but why had she kept it all these years? She was never sentimental. And some of the details, the color of my car, the make of my watch, they were wrong. Deliberately so. What could they possibly have that's stronger?
Good Lord, I breathed, more to myself than anyone. My mind was racing, trying to catch up. Then Sarah's lawyer, that slick young buck with the $1,000 suit, cleared his throat. "Your Honor," he said, smooth as a snake oil salesman, "I believe we have a document that will shed some light on the nature of the funds Mrs. Parker provided to my clients." He gestured to his paralegal, who scurried forward with a tablet. The lawyer plugged it into the court's display screen, and suddenly there it was. A document titled Gift Letter. My signature, clear as day. My digital signature. "This," the lawyer announced, his voice dripping with condescension, "is the gift letter submitted to Wells Fargo, the mortgage lender, during the purchase of the property in question. It clearly states that the $400,000 provided by Mrs. Parker was a gift, with no expectation of repayment. It's a standard form, Your Honor, nothing unusual about it." I stared at the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I recognized the form vaguely, but the details. I leaned forward, squinting. "And if you'll direct your attention to the digital timestamp, Your Honor, you'll see that this document was submitted and signed 3 days prior to the promissory note Mrs. Parker presented as evidence of a loan agreement." 3 days prior? That couldn't be right. I distinctly remember, I remember signing something. I'd assumed it was the loan agreement. But 3 days earlier? It was like one of those logic puzzles I used to solve in my retirement community's newsletter, only this one had life-altering consequences. A wave of nausea washed over me. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the armrest of my chair, knuckles white. Anya squeezed my hand again, her touch surprisingly strong. "Mrs. Parker?" the judge asked, his voice laced with a hint of pity. I swallowed hard, trying to regain my composure. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice trembling slightly. I don't remember signing this. Not before the loan agreement." The lawyer smirked. "Mistake, Mrs. Parker? This is a digitally signed document, submitted directly to the lender. It's been authenticated. There's no room for mistake." He was right. Damn him. I knew how those digital signatures worked. They were supposed to be foolproof, secure. But my mind groped for an explanation. I remembered getting the email with the documents to sign. There had been several attachments, all PDFs, loan documents, mortgage applications, all that mumbo-jumbo. I'd printed them all out, read them carefully, or so I thought, and then signed them digitally, using that awful program. What was it called? DocuSign? Something like that. I always hated using it. It felt impersonal, cold.
And I distinctly remember getting annoyed because the confirmation emails were going into my spam folder. I had to mark Wells Fargo as not spam just to make sure. Irritating little detail that suddenly felt significant. But still, I'd reviewed everything. I'd been meticulous. I always was, even back in my days as an accountant. I didn't miss things. I didn't make mistakes like this. Your Honor, I'm telling you, I wouldn't have signed a gift letter before securing a promise of repayment. It makes no sense. I'm not an idiot. Sarah sat beside her lawyer, her face an inscrutable mask. No remorse, no guilt, but just nothing. My own daughter, looking at me like I was some kind of inconvenience. Suddenly, I felt a surge of anger, stronger than anything I'd felt before. This wasn't just about the money. This was about betrayal, about manipulation, about rewriting our shared history to suit their selfish needs. They were trying to make me look like a fool, and they were doing a damn good job of it. But something was off. The dates, yes, but also the language in the document itself. There was a clause about estate planning that I didn't recall. And the font, wasn't it different from the other documents? Subtly, almost imperceptibly, but different. I looked at Anya, her brow furrowed with concern. I forced a weak smile. Honey, can you hand me my bag? Anya passed it over and I fumbled inside for my reading glasses. I needed to see that document again, up close. I needed to find something, anything, that would expose this charade. As I put on my glasses and focused on the image on the screen, a cold dread settled over me. It was there, in the signature, subtly but undeniably. While it looked like my signature, it was just slightly off. My e-signature was a bit shaky due to my damn arthritis, but this was too smooth. Almost machine perfect. But the timestamp, that was the real killer. How could I have signed something 3 days before the supposed known agreement, something I have no memory of ever signing?
Well, isn't this just peachy? I muttered, more to myself than Anya. The courtroom air felt thick, heavy with defeat. I could practically taste it, stale coffee and shattered hope. Anya squeezed my hand. Don't give up yet, Helen. But her eyes told a different story. They were the eyes of someone who knew the game was over. Across the room, my daughter, Bethany, sat with that smarmy lawyer of hers, Mr. Thompson. He was one of those young bucks who probably thought Social Security was some kind of government handout for lazy people. You know the type. Slicked back hair, expensive suit, probably drives some fancy electric car that I can't even fathom. Bethany was looking straight ahead, her face carefully blank. But I saw it, the slight twitch at the corner of her mouth, a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk. She thought she'd won. And damn it, maybe she had. Mr. Thompson rose, adjusting his tie with a practiced air. Your Honor, I believe the evidence speaks for itself. Mrs. Parker, in her own words, drafted a loan agreement. However, we have here a signed, notarized document, signed by Mrs. Parker, explicitly stating that the funds were a gift intended to assist Bethany and Mark with their home purchase. He held up the dreaded document, the one with the off signature. My stomach churned. Objection! Anya snapped, but it was weak, hesitant. She knew, just like I did, that we were grasping at straws. The judge, a kindly-looking woman who probably crocheted Afghans in her spare time, sighed. Mr. Thompson, I understand your point, but are you suggesting Mrs. Parker was mentally incapacitated at the time of the transfer? Thompson spread his hands, a picture of innocent concern. Your Honor, I am simply presenting the evidence. The court can draw its own conclusions. We are merely showing there is a pattern of unusual and expensive purchases that would be atypical for someone on a fixed income. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. We think it might be worth investigating. Anya turned to me, her face pale.
Helen, did you make these purchases? I racked my brain. I don't know. I buy things online. I can't recall all the details. My arthritis has been acting up. Maybe I clicked something wrong on the iPad. I don't know. My voice trailed off, weak and uncertain. And that was it. That was the moment I knew we'd lost. They had painted a picture of me as a senile old woman, confused and forgetful, easily manipulated. And that fraudulent signature, that was the linchpin. It allowed them to dismiss my claims, to cast doubt on my sanity, to turn my own generosity against me. The worst part, it was working. The judge looked at me with a mixture of pity and suspicion. I could see the questions swirling in her mind. Was I really in control of my finances? Was I being taken advantage of? The phantom factor, that stupid, inconsequential blip that popped up when I was trying to transfer the money to Bethany. It must have been how they were able to manipulate things, some kind of digital trickery to make it look like I was doing things I wasn't. And I didn't even notice it. I just thought it was some stupid ad. Bethany still hadn't looked at me. She was staring straight ahead, her jaw tight. Was there a flicker of triumph in her eyes? Or was that just my imagination? My vision blurred. I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me. I reached for Anya's hand, clutching it tightly. "Anya," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What can we do?" Anya squeezed my hand back, her grip firm, but her expression grim. I don't know, Helen. They have a signed document. They have your bank statements. They have... She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. We were cornered, trapped. My own generosity had been weaponized against me. My own daughter, the child I had loved and nurtured and sacrificed everything for, was sitting across the room watching me bleed. The judge cleared her throat. "Mrs. Parker, do you have any further evidence to present?" I looked at Anya, my eyes pleading. She shook her head. We had nothing. "No, Your Honor. Nothing further." The judge nodded. "Very well, I will take all evidence into consideration and render a decision in 2 weeks." She rapped her gavel. "Court is adjourned." As people began to file out, Anya helped me to my feet. My legs felt like lead. I wanted to scream, to rage, to tear the courtroom apart with my bare hands. But I was too weak, too defeated. As we walked slowly towards the exit, I caught Bethany's eye. For the first time, she looked directly at me, and what I saw was not triumph. It was pity. "Mom," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper, "I'm sorry it had to come to this." I wanted to slap her. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to tell her but I couldn't. I just stared at her, numb with disbelief. "Sorry?" I managed to croak out. "Is that all you have to say? After everything? You're sorry?" She looked away, her gaze darting nervously around the room. "It's complicated, Mom. You wouldn't understand." "Oh, I understand just fine, sweetie. I understand that you are a viper, and I raised you. And you know what they say, a viper bites hardest the hand that feeds it." As we walked out into the bright sunlight, I felt a cold dread settle over me. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about something far more profound. It was about the shattering of trust, the betrayal of a bond, the realization that my own daughter was capable of this. Is there any way out when the villain's digital forgery is better than your truth?
"Well, isn't that just a load of hogwash?" I muttered, staring at my reflection in the dark computer screen. The pale light painted me 10 years older than I already was, etched every wrinkle deeper, highlighted the gray sneaking into my once vibrant auburn hair. Arthritis throbbed in my knuckles as I reached out, as if to touch the ghost of that girl I used to be. The house was silent, save for the grandfather clock in the hall, ticking away relentlessly. Time, the one thing you can't buy more of, and right now, I felt like I was running out of it. I padded into the kitchen,
the linoleum cold under my bare feet. Earl Grey always calmed my nerves. The kettle whistled a mournful tune as it reached a boil. As I waited for it to steep, I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. A blinking blue light from the living room. That damn router. I'd upgraded after that idiot Bethany tried to claim I was harassing her online. My old one was practically held together with duct tape and prayer. But this new one? This was something else. Leo, the young buck from Best Buy, had practically drooled as he installed it. He'd been all of 22, hair slicked back with enough gel to hold up a small building. "This baby logs everything, ma'am," he said, adjusting his glasses with a smirk. "Every single packet of data, in and out, stored on an immutable cloud server for your protection." Immutable cloud server. It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. All I cared about at the time was that it was supposed to be hack-proof. I didn't want Bethany painting me as some crazy old woman sending her threatening emails. The thought made my stomach churn. My own daughter, accusing me of such things. I remembered Leo going on and on about firewalls and encryptions and MAC addresses. Honestly, it was all Greek to me. I just nodded and smiled, trying to look like I understood. He'd shown me some app on my iPhone, a little blue dashboard with graphs and numbers that meant absolutely nothing to me. All I wanted was for him to leave so I could have my cup of tea in peace. Now that blinking blue light seemed less like a nuisance and more like a dare. Damn that Bethany. Damn her manipulation and her lies. All that money gone. My retirement up in smoke to help her buy that damn house. And for what? To be treated like a pariah? To have my parenting advice labeled toxic? Toxic, that's what she called it. After I'd spent my whole life trying to give her the best I could, making her clothes when we couldn't afford store-bought, working double shifts at the accounting firm so she could go to that fancy dance academy, sacrificing everything for her happiness. And now, I was toxic. I gripped my teacup so hard I thought it might shatter. I sat down heavily at the kitchen table, staring at the blinking light. Leo's words echoed in my head. Every single packet of data. What did that even mean? Could that thing have somehow captured what was actually going on? Could it prove that Bethany had doctored those emails? Could it show the judge that I was being framed? My heart filled with a surge of something. Not quite hope. More like a flicker of defiance in the face of utter despair. It was a long shot, I knew, a desperate gamble, but what else did I have to lose? I took a sip of my tea. The Earl Grey momentarily soothed the knot in my stomach. I looked at my hands, gnarled and spotted with age. These hands had balanced ledgers, baked cookies, and held my baby girl close. Now, they might have to learn a whole new set of tricks. I finished my tea and pushed myself up from the table. My knees creaked in protest. "All right," I said to the empty kitchen. "Let's see what this immutable cloud server is all about." I walked back into the living room, my determination growing with each step. I hadn't touched that router's app since Leo installed it. It was probably buried somewhere on the third page of my iPhone amidst a bunch of other useless apps I didn't understand. I found the app, a little blue icon with a stylized R on it. I tapped it tentatively. A screen popped up asking for a password. Damn it, I never could remember passwords. I tried a few obvious ones. Bethany123, password, sunshine, Bethany's childhood nickname. Nothing worked. I sighed. This was going to be harder than I thought. Then I remembered something else Leo had said. If you forget your password, ma'am, just press this little button on the back of the router and it will reset it to the default. I felt my way around the back of the sleek black box until my fingers found a tiny recessed button. I pressed it with the end of a pen. The router blinked, then went dark for a moment,
When it came back on, the blue light was flashing more rapidly. I went back to my phone, tapped the app again, and success! It asked me to create a new password. This time, I wrote it down in my checkbook. Can't trust my memory these days. The app opened, revealing a bewildering array of graphs and charts and numbers. It looked like the cockpit of a spaceship. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. There were sections labeled data usage, network security, connected devices. Then I saw it. A section labeled traffic logs. My heart skipped a beat. Traffic logs. Could that be it? Could that be the key to unlocking the truth? I tapped on the section, and a new screen appeared, filled with even more incomprehensible data. IP addresses, timestamps, packet sizes. It was all gibberish to me. I felt a wave of frustration wash over me. This was hopeless. I was an old woman trying to decipher alien code. But then I saw something. A column labeled source, and another labeled destination, and next to them, a list of IP addresses. One of the IP addresses under source looked familiar. It was the one Leo had pointed out as being my computer. And under destination, I saw a different IP address, one I didn't recognize. But next to it, a notation, email server. Could it be? Could this app actually show me where those emails had originated? Could it prove that Bethany had sent them herself using a fake IP address to make it look like they came from me? My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the logs, searching for the dates and times of the emails Bethany had presented in court. It was like searching for a needle in a haystack, but I refused to give up. Hours passed. The grandfather clock chimed midnight. My eyes burned, my back ached, and my head swam with numbers. But still, I searched. Finally, as the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I found it. An entry that matched the date and time of the emails Bethany had presented in court. The source IP address was not mine. It was a completely different address. And the destination was, indeed, an email server. Below that entry, there was a string of code. Hexadecimal numbers and letters, seemingly random, but something told me, something deep down, that this code held the key. I stared at the screen, a glimmer of hope flickering in my chest. I didn't know what this code meant. I didn't know how to decipher it, but I knew one thing. I had found something. Something that could potentially prove my innocence. Something that could turn the tables on Bethany. But what was that code? Could a nuisance be a weapon?
Lord, have mercy, I whispered, staring at that string of hexadecimal nonsense. It looked like something from one of those spy movies. I needed help. I needed it now. My gaze flicked to the little sticker on the side of the router. 24/7 technical support. Bless their cotton socks for that. I grabbed the phone, my old rotary dial phone, not that fancy smartphone nonsense. Give me something reliable, you know? I punched in the number, my fingers fumbling slightly with arthritis. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. I was just about to hang up, thinking I'd get stuck with some automated system, when a bright young voice answered. Thank you for calling Secure Home Solutions. This is Leo. How can I help you? Leo, honey, I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. This is Helen Parker. I need some assistance with my router. There was a pause. Then, Mrs. Parker? Wow, I don't usually get to talk to folks who actually use the forensic audit feature. That's really something. Forensic audit feature? What in the Sam Hill was that? Well, bless your heart, Leo. I didn't even know it had a forensic audit feature. I just need to figure out what this gobbledygook on the screen is.
I held the phone up to the computer speaker, hoping he could somehow hear the noise of the screen.
Gobbledygook, ma'am? Are you looking at the router logs? Is that what you call it?
Yes, sweetie, I think so. It's got all sorts of numbers and letters, IP addresses and things. Well, it looks like someone was using my internet to send emails from a fake address. I could practically hear Leo vibrating with excitement through the phone line. Mrs. Parker, you are a legend. Okay, let's get you through this. Are you comfortable accessing the router's administrative panel? Leo, honey, I balanced books for 30 years. I can handle a router panel. Just tell me where to go. I tried to sound more confident than I felt. He walked me through the steps. It involved typing a specific address into my browser. I hadn't done that since Bethany set it all up for me, claiming it was for optimal performance. Snake oil salesman that girl was. A screen popped up asking for a username and password. Admin, he said helpfully, and then the password should be password unless you changed it. Password, huh? Original. That keeps the hackers away, I muttered. I typed it in. Bingo. Okay, Leo, I'm in. Now what? Okay, Mrs. Parker, now go to the logs section. It might be under advanced settings or system tools. Just look around, you'll find it. I clicked and scrolled, my eyes scanning the options. Finally, I found it. System logs. I clicked. Another screen filled with, logs. Pages and pages of them. Okay, Leo, I see it. It's a lot. Right, now you want to filter by date and time. You mentioned you had the timestamps of those emails, right? Yes, I do. Bethany was very thorough. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. Leo patiently guided me through the filtering process. We narrowed down the logs to the specific day and hour Bethany had presented in court. My heart hammered in my chest. Okay, Mrs. Parker, now look at the source IP address for those entries. Does it match your external IP address? I squinted at the screen, comparing the addresses. Mine started with 72.145, and the email entry, 198.51.100. No, Leo, it's completely different. Not even close. Leo practically shouted with glee. That's it! That's the proof, Mrs. Parker! That log is unchangeable. It's a record of every connection made through your router. If the email originated from a different IP address, it couldn't have come from your network. Unchangeable. A record. A real, honest-to-God, unvarnished truth. A wave of relief washed over me, so powerful it almost knocked me out of my chair. But what about that hexadecimal code, Leo? That string of numbers and letters? That's the transaction ID, ma'am. It's a unique identifier for that specific connection. It's like a fingerprint. It links everything together. Time, IP address, destination, everything. A fingerprint. A digital fingerprint that pointed directly to Bethany. I felt a slow, dangerous smile creep across my face. Oh, Bethany, sweetie, you thought you were so clever. You thought you could outsmart your old mother. But you forgot one thing. Mama knows her way around a ledger. What will the unchangeable logs reveal in court?
Well, bless her heart, I muttered under my breath, loud enough for Agnes, bless her heart, to hear. Agnes, bless her heart, just patted my hand. The courtroom was stifling. The air conditioning rattled and wheezed like my poor old lungs on a humid Atlanta summer day. Bethany's lawyer, that oily-haired shyster, was droning on about my mental decline, my unreliable memory, the gall of the man. He had the audacity to suggest I couldn't remember signing the damn gift letter. Said I was confused about my finances, easily manipulated. Sarah, my own flesh and blood, sat at the table beside him, looking all prim and proper in her navy blue power suit. A fake picture of concern plastered on her face, the kind you see in those cheesy stock photos. She'd even dabbed on a little extra blush, trying to look sympathetic to the jury. Snake? Mrs. Parker, are you certain you recall the details of the transaction? The lawyer asked, his voice dripping with condescension. He looked at me like I was a confused toddler. I recall writing a check, young man, if that's what you're asking. I might have arthritis in my hands, but my brain still works just fine. Better than yours, probably, I snapped. He smirked, that smug, infuriating smirk that made me want to slap him silly. But can you recall the specifics of the document you signed, the exact amount, the date? Perhaps your memory is failing you, Mrs. Parker. Failing me? Honey, I remember the price of milk in 1958. Don't you dare imply my memory is going anywhere. That's when Anya, bless her feisty little soul, stood up. She was like a terrier with a bone, that girl, small but tenacious. Your Honor, we have new evidence to present, she announced, her voice clear and strong. The judge, a weary-looking man with a face like a crumpled napkin, raised an eyebrow. New evidence, Miss Petrova? This is rather late in the proceedings. Your Honor, this evidence is crucial to the matter at hand and directly refutes the plaintiff's claims regarding Mrs. Parker's mental state and the authenticity of the gift letter. She gestured to the court officer, who wheeled in a large screen and a projector. Sarah's face tightened, a flicker of unease crossing her features. Good. Let her sweat. Anya fiddled with her laptop, and then, boom, up on the screen, filling the entire wall, were those damn logs from my cloud security system. The very ones Leo had helped me decipher. I could barely make heads or tails of them, all those numbers and letters blurring together. But I knew what they represented: the truth. Your Honor, we have obtained forensic logs from Mrs. Parker's home network. These logs document every internet connection made through her router during the relevant time period. She pointed to a specific section of the log, highlighting a string of numbers and letters. That hexadecimal code, I remembered Leo calling it. That transaction ID. It all came flooding back. This entry, Anya continued, her voice gaining momentum, corresponds to the exact time and date the gift letter was supposedly signed. As you can see, the source IP address for this connection is 192.168.1.12. She clicked again, and a new image appeared on the screen, a map of Atlanta with 2 points highlighted. One, my house in Buckhead, the other, a towering skyscraper downtown. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge looked startled. Anya wasn't finished. Furthermore, we have obtained GPS data from Mrs. Parker's cell phone as well as credit card receipts, which place her at a doctor's appointment across town at the exact time this connection was made. She turned to face the jury, her eyes blazing. Therefore, the evidence clearly demonstrates that the gift letter could not have been signed from Mrs. Parker's home network. It originated from Sarah Miller's office while Mrs. Parker was miles away. Sarah sat there frozen, her face ashen. The smugness was gone, replaced with a look of sheer, unadulterated panic. Anya clicked one last time, and a new piece of information appeared on the screen. The MAC address of the device that originated the email. I remembered Leo mentioning that too, something about it being a hardware identifier. Anya smiled, a small, almost pitying smile. And for those of you who are technically inclined, a comparison of the MAC address from the originating email with Mrs. Miller's office network equipment shows an exact match to a printer assigned to Mrs. Miller's personal assistant. I watched Sarah's face crumble. The mask had finally slipped. Oh, it was beautiful, like watching a house of cards collapse. The room was silent. You could hear a pin drop, except for the rattling air conditioner still chugging along, oblivious to the drama unfolding. I felt a surge of vindication, so powerful it almost made me giddy. But mixed with that was a profound sadness. My own daughter, capable of such deception. But the ledger never lies, does it, sweetie? But what happens when a perfect crime is undone by a forgotten detail?
Well, bless her heart, I said, mostly to myself. The judge, bless his starched shirt and thinning comb-over, didn't waste any time. Dismissed the conservatorship faster than you can say elder abuse, and referred Sarah for criminal investigation of fraud and perjury. David just stood there, looking like someone had sucker punched him. The poor boy. He really thought his sister was Wonder Woman. I needed air. I'm back on my porch now. The wisteria is in bloom, smelling sweet as can be, and the sun is dipping low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. I'm cradling my finest porcelain cup, the one with the little forget-me-nots, filled with Earl Grey, just the way I like it, strong with a splash of milk. It was a gift from Harold, my late husband. He knew I appreciated the finer things, even when he couldn't afford them. I sure do miss that man. The crickets are starting their nightly chorus, a sound I usually find soothing. Tonight it just feels hollow. My phone buzzed. Anya. Helen, we won. Dismissed with prejudice. Sarah's looking at some serious charges, honey. I could hear the smile in her voice. That's good, Anya. Thank you. You were magnificent. Don't thank me yet. There's something else. The forensic audit. It flagged another unauthorized access to your main trust account last year. Unauthorized access? What are you talking about? It was small, relatively speaking, compared to the house down payment, but it was routed through a server in the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands? What in the Sam Hill? Anya, explain this to me like I'm 5. What does that mean? It means someone was very careful, Helen, very sophisticated. They used an offshore server to mask their location. It's almost untraceable. Almost? I asked, my voice hardening. The vindication I felt earlier was quickly fading, replaced by a cold, simmering anger. Understood, Helen. I'll keep you posted. But be prepared. This could be a long haul. I hung up the phone, the screen reflecting the darkening sky. The crickets seemed to be chirping louder now, mocking me with their incessant noise. Damn it. I should have seen this coming. I was so focused on Sarah and that house, I let my guard down. Again. It wasn't just the money, though that stung enough. It was the betrayal, the violation. Someone had been poking around in my life, in my finances, like a rat in the pantry, and that someone clearly knew what they were doing. I thought about David. He seemed genuinely devastated by Sarah's actions. Could he be involved in this too? No, he was too naive, too easily led. He wouldn't have the sophistication. He barely knew how to work the smart TV. He still calls me for help with his streaming services. Then who? My mind raced through a list of possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. Had I been too trusting? Had I missed something? Someone? I'd been so careful with my investments, so diligent in tracking every penny. I even had a password manager now. Leo set it up for me. He told me it was safer than writing it all down in my checkbook register. I still kept that checkbook, though. Old habits die hard. I took another sip of my tea, the warmth doing little to soothe the chill that had settled over me. The ledger never lies, I had said to Sarah. But what if someone was cooking the books, hiding their tracks so well that even I, a seasoned accountant, couldn't see it? I stood up, my knees protesting with a familiar creak. Time for a little more investigating. I went back inside. heading straight for my office. It was a small, cluttered room filled with tax returns, bank statements, and old photographs. Harold's picture sat on my desk, a reminder of simpler times. I pulled out my old address book, the one with the faded floral cover. It was filled with names and numbers, some dating back decades. I started flipping through the pages, looking for anything that might spark a memory, a connection, a clue. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Anya was just being thorough. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. But I knew, deep down, that wasn't the case. Someone had been stealing from me, and they had been clever enough to cover their tracks, but they hadn't covered them well enough. Not yet. I paused at a page filled with names I hadn't thought of in a very long time. It was a name that sent a shiver down my spine. A name that I thought I had forgotten. Damn, who else has been in the cookie jar?